Yes, indeed. You got
Cool.
me?
Yeah. So, dude, I've done my AirPods a couple times in the past, and dude, like they've kind of crapped out on me. I don't know if you've ever had issues with those, but like it like they've either disconnected or I've shorted out. So I mean, I got old school air. I hope you can hear me okay, and it doesn't sound like crap.
You sound perfect, Matt.
Okay.
You're coming
All
through
right.
fine.
Okay. Cool. How are you, dude?
I'm doing fantastic, Matt.
Good.
5 weeks, 6 weeks into, I think, yeah, 6 weeks into our newborn son being
Oh
here.
wow.
It's been wild. I would have been down there for fall camp with all of y'all, but I was down there for spring. Got some credentials and was going to be back down there, but he was born like I think the first day of fall camp, and so
Oh
I was like,
wow.
my duties are here. So
Yeah, dude. That's congratulations, man. That it's definitely life changing.
yeah, I mean it's been wild. It's been wild, but it's
Little
been
boy.
yeah, a boy,
What's his
uh,
name?
Sage.
Sage. That's awesome, man. So 5 weeks old, huh?
Yep. I think I'm wrong on that. I think he's now 6 weeks. I think he's just hit the 6 week marker.
Gotcha.
Maybe no. Technically, I guess it'd be just 5, maybe. But
How's he sleeping?
he's been crazy at first. He was really good at sleeping, very good at sleeping, and he was very underweight, very underweight. He was like 5'9", I think, when he came, and it was like, we had to get his weight up. But then in the
Yeah.
second he really got his weight going, he started having an upset stomach, and
Yeah.
he was up for quite a bit. But it really was nothing, man. I was getting ready for it by just staying up all night myself, racking my own brain, getting ready for this craziness. And here he is. He's such a cute little guy. I'm hoping everything continues to be okay. And
Awesome.
we were lucky. We were lucky, and he's gotten his way up to 7, 9, 8 pounds, I think,
Awesome.
now. So
Awesome.
it's hopefully Lord willing.
Yeah, man. 5'9". It's probably a little bit under the average, but not too bad, man. It's amazing, dude. Just what doctors and medicine can do and what they deal with, what they see every day, man. I know it's like when it's your kid, it's like it's always a little more nerve wracking or whatever. But
Matt,
he'll be great.
I was reading your story, and this was something I knew a little bit about, but I didn't quite grasp it all. I was in the hospital for 9 days with my son. You were in the hospital for 9 months.
9 months, yeah.
With Drew. How's he doing now? He's 8 years old.
He's 8. He's gonna walk in here. So I guarantee you, at some point while we're sitting here, he will walk in here. But yeah, he's good, man. Our normal's a little different than everybody else's, but shoot, he's the best part of every day of my life, man. That's just like any other parent. I'm sure you know it now, dude. It's just a different kind of love, and you just want what's best for your kids, man. So he's great. Yeah, man.
It's been wild, and I just seeing what you guys have gone through and how you guys have come out on the other side of that, and seeing Louisiana kind of rally around you like that hardcore. I mean, that was really cool to see.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. By the way, just real quick, are we streaming? Are we live right now?
This is all private.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if we were live yet. And it's no big deal either way. I mean, but
this is all set to private for YouTube.
No, it's all good. But yeah, dude, we're good, man. He's 8, and yeah, Louisiana, Baton Rouge was awesome. When we got home, there were so many people that were like, you don't understand, like your son belongs to Baton Rouge, and I don't know if I fully understand, because when you're living, like it's weird. It's almost like the Truman Show. Like we were living this sort of alternate reality in this little bubble, and life went on around you. So it's like life at home didn't stop because we were gone.
Yeah.
So you don't really conceptualize how much people know or care or whatever. But man, still to this day, dude, like, I mean, just like every day of my life, like literally every day of my life, someone asks me how he's doing. Just it's 8 years ago, man. It's been almost a decade. But still every day people ask me. So I get it, man. We had a ton of support, which was awesome. You know, it's humbling.
It was cool. It was cool to see that, and cool to see. You know, I heard on some show T-Bob making some jokes about him and stuff, and I was like, this is great. This is great to see. And I don't know. I didn't know too much about you as well. I mean, I know about your show AFR, and I know that, you know, graduate from the manship. You've been doing this for 15 years, covering LSU, right? Has it been 15?
Yeah. So I started in radio in 03 and my first season covering LSU was 07 when they won. So yeah, 15. Yeah. I think this might what an introduction, right? 7, 8, 9, 10.
What a season.
I think so. This is my 16th season. It's been 15 years, but this will be 16th season covering the team. So dude, it goes in a blink, dude. So it goes by so just saying that is wild, dude. Oh my god.
What is making this season for you different than the others, you feel?
I mean, aside from the obvious, right? I mean, it's a new coach. You know, I guess he's like, you could look at it from different ways. Like, if you mean the season itself, or do you mean like for me personally? I mean, for me personally, it's Ed didn't like me, and it made doing my job professionally difficult.
Me too.
Yeah. So, you know, whatever. So, I mean, it's different when you kind of get a clean slate. Like the first day of the first press conference, I walked in, the sports information people were like, welcome back. It's been a while. So
I was never getting credentials under Derek Bonamsky and Coach O. I was never, and maybe quite rightly, I was very inexperienced, kind of stupid at the time anyway. But, you know, Kelly, Bonnet, they gave me a shot, and I couldn't believe how welcoming they were, how just forthright with everything. And it's really a different thing for everyone says, you know, it's a new era for LSU football, but even for the media people, we're kind of sensing that as well.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I mean, we've never had access like this. So, Les was, how long have you been doing your show?
It's been 4 years now.
4 years.
4 years, my site, just a blog at first.
So Les, so you never had Les.
I remember.
He just, but working with him, he was so aloof. I mean, you know, I guarantee you, despite the fact that for 10 years, I sat in press conferences, I talked to them. I bet if you went and asked him, hey, what does Moscona do? He couldn't tell you. I'm telling you, I'm not even joking. He's,
wow.
He's just so different. I mean, I mean, people make their jokes, and it's like, well, yeah, of course he was, but yes, but I mean, it was just, even on like a personal level, it was very different. You know, and then Ed obviously was Ed, but you know, whatever. So,
is this the job you always expected for yourself to be covering LSU, covering sports?
I never wanted to do sports.
Really?
No, I love sports, but sports. I mean, did you go to Manship?
No.
You mentioned Manship. So when I was in J school, I mean, I always wanted to do news. Like I was, you know, and I was in school during 9/11, and that was very formative. Like to watch a lot of the news people cover that event, and that was very, you know, professionally inspiring for me. I mean, I love sports. I just thought sports as a career was trivial. I don't want to do sports. I was going to make a difference. You know what I mean? But man, I just grew to hate it. I did it for about 4 years and hated it. I hated it. And to this day, kind of seeing how the sausage was made just made me so sort of disenchanted with the whole thing. Like everything's red, blue, left, right, liberal, liberal. Because I shut the fuck up. I just hate it. It's so people can't put that bullshit out of there. I mean, I'm the least political person because of all that. So anyway, I hated it, and accidentally got into sports actually, and never left.
So here we are. Sense that tone with how you do your show. It's not really just a run-of-the-mill sports tone. You kind of have maybe not a news vibe to it, but it's got a little something different to it, and it's very interesting to hear that you've got that background. It kind of fits the puzzle pieces with me for your kind of your growth, your rise into this position here.
We could talk about some of this if you want. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I could, if you want to talk about media stuff, I think that's sometimes interesting to people. But whatever. I mean, we can do.
We can talk about anything. I mean, I've got a bunch of questions for you. I've got a bunch of questions. I mean, I've got a question for you about growing up in Baton Rouge, born and raised, graduated from Catholic High, and graduating from the Manship School of Communications. Did you feel like, as a young guy, like your future was based in Louisiana, that you were going to stay home, or were you going to go abroad?
No, I was going to leave, and I did. I left my freshman year of college, and I went to Holy Cross up in South Bend. Actually, I didn't want to stay, but coming back was the best decision for me. I mean, LSU. I loved my time at LSU. Like, as a student there was awesome. So, that it's funny how sometimes those things work out, and that worked out for me. But sometimes you have to. Oh man, I guess like I had to leave to know I wanted to stay, and just like with news, I had to try news to know that's not what I wanted to do. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's,
of course,
I think it's just a lot of times just taking that leap. Trying different things to find out what you like, what taste you like. So, but yeah, no, I never thought I'd stay. It wasn't that I don't love Baton Rouge. I do. It's home. Louisiana's home, but I just always wanted to go see what else was out there.
That's so funny that you mentioned South Bend, because I remember you saying that during your rebuttal to Brian Driscoll, that you'd gone up there and that you'd had had background there, and that your brother went to Notre Dame, of course, right?
Yeah. Oh, he was in it, dog. I mean, that whole Notre Dame culture it's just different, dude. Like it is. I would describe it like, I always described it as the bubble. I call Notre Dame the bubble, because like literally students never leave. You never have to leave campus. I mean, literally, like you live on campus. Most students don't have a vehicle. You eat on campus. You live in your dorm. Your dorm's kind of like your fraternity. You go to the rec. There's like parties. There's no bars. There's no bar scene. Parties were in dorm rooms. Like you would, like, some dorms would like connect their rooms, have like a hall party where, like, okay, 4th floor in Stanford Hall, and like 4 rooms that open it up and they have kegs in the rooms. Like, you never left campus. It was the bubble. And dude, if you loved it, I mean, it's the greatest place on earth. But if you didn't, it's like, get me the fuck out of here. And that's what I was like. I did not love it. I was like, get me the fuck out of here. So, but that's what. But I'm glad I went, and did it, and sort of pursued a goal, and ultimately coming back to LSU was the best thing for me, though. Like, I loved Manship. I loved being a student at LSU. I'm very, very grateful for my time at LSU, as a student. Hey, Lon, hang on one second.
Okay. Matt Moscona joining us. Host of ESPN 104.5's After Further Review. The man himself returns.
What's that?
Scona, the man himself returns. I was about to ask you, what was the first LSU game you attended, Matt? I mean, I've always wanted to wonder that, because you've had a long history with LSU, I'm sure, as a Baton Rouge native.
Yeah. Hey, wait, real quick. How much do you want to do here?
As much as you can. How much time you have available?
Normally, I go put my little boy in the bath at 9.
Okay.
So I was thinking like 8:30 to 9 would have been half hour.
Okay.
But we can go a little longer if you want. Maybe like 9:15 or so. So I just wanted to let you know, like, if you wanted to roll, like, are we going to do it live, or are you just going to record and upload it?
I'll just record and upload it. Kind of
Okay.
Whatever you feel that maybe you want me to cut out. If you have anything you want me to chop.
No.
Okay.
Try. Ask me anything. You don't have to cut nothing, dude.
Sorry, I'm used to some people who are sometimes
No, dude. Are you
take
kidding me?
advantage of me being lower on the totem pole and hey, get rid of that quote.
No, bro. Like, my life is just about as open a book as you'll find. So whatever we say, we're good.
Fuck yes. Matt, I mean, Baton Rouge native. What was that first LSU game you attended?
Man, I'm actually a New Orleans native. I was born in Metairie, at Lakeside Hospital.
Okay.
So I lived in NOLA till I was 7.
Okay.
And some of my earliest memories, Lon, were like Saturday mornings. We'd wake up and drive to Baton Rouge. My dad, me, my brother. We'd tailgate on the old front 9. A friend of my dad's had a tailgating spot at the clubhouse on the old front 9. That's where we would tailgate, man. He had one of those old like vans, like the big like Mark III vans. It was gold with purple paw prints on it. I remember that.
Yes.
And then we'd go to the games and then, drive back to New Orleans after. And I can't tell you, like, I remember specific plays of some of my earliest games, but like 88 against Miami, I remember being in the rain. Like me, my dad, my brother, and our youth league football coach went to that game. Like I remember sitting in the north end zone in the rain. I don't remember anything about the game. LSU got killed. I remember one of those games in the late 80s against Alabama. Some of my earliest like actual memories of games, golly, I vividly remember watching the Vanderbilt game in 1990. Todd Kinchin caught what looked like it was going to be a game-winning Hail Mary. They called it for offensive pass interference. It was a Jefferson Pilot, 11 a.m. game. Man, a lot of those Curly teams were terrible. I was at the Southern Miss game in 94 when LSU lost to Southern Miss. Certainly remember we made a habit of going to every game in the DiNardo era, even if it was just going and scalping tickets outside just to get in and sit somewhere in the stadium wherever we could. But 96 against Houston when Kevin Falk had the punt return for a touchdown to open the fourth quarter. Of course, 97 was special. I didn't go to the Florida game, but I was there the next week whenever they lost to Ole Miss. And I went to every game as a student. So yeah, man, those are some of my earliest memories. I'm super grateful for all those memories.
That actually says a lot about how many games you've seen that you can't remember what the first one was. Man, Matt, that's awesome. That's awesome. That someone I wanted to ask you about, someone I think you really have a lot of chemistry with. You've done shows with former LSU O-lineman T-Bob, A-Bear, and Gordy Rush has paired you up with T-Bob for the Whiskey and Wine post-game show, among others. And in the past, what's it like working alongside T-Bob?
T-Bob, I like to describe T-Bob's and my on-air relationship as like the Chris Farley, David Spade dynamic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're Chris Farley, David Spade. Like we're not nearly that, obviously, exceptionally generationally talented. I just mean like there's the dynamic of like the big giant oaf and then the smart ass. So hi, Drew. I told you he was gonna bust in here at some point.
What up, buddy?
His name is Lon. Say hi, Lon.
Hi, Lon.
Okay.
What's up, Drew?
All right, no, he's gone. Okay, he had to check in. I told you it was an inevitability. He was gonna come in here at some point. So,
Drew, let's go, man.
No, but T-Bob and I, dude, we it's funny because we first when he finished playing, he worked at Guarantee for a brief stint as a sales guy. And then went to New Orleans, and he was with Entercom. He was on like 3WL. He did a morning show with Christian Garrick, and then did nights from 8 to midnight on L and WWL and 870. And there was a lot of times when T-Bob was in New Orleans, he would call me and get me on his show as a guest.
Really?
So that was maybe like the first time we ever kind of worked together professionally. But when he came back to Baton Rouge, when they had the changeover in the morning show, Derek went to go work for Ed Ogeron. Derek Panamsky went to go work for Ogeron. He and Jordy Collada were doing the morning show. They made the decision to hire T-Bob, bring him back. And he and I didn't really have a chance to work together until they partnered us together on Eagle 98.1 Game Day, the pregame show.
Yeah.
And we did like 5 hours of radio together. And the only way our dynamic worked was just us being complete polar opposites. Him not knowing anything about football, me being the know-it-all. And it's just people pick sides and they eat it up, man. So it's worked well. Our dynamics worked well.
It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, even this last weekend was outrageous. I posted a clip of it on my Twitter. I won't quote it, but T-Bob did something with Dickerson to Cockerson. It was just, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was outrageous. Your look of dismay was just like, you done, T-Bob? Like it was just, it's just great. And another great thing about your show is your relationship with Super Bowl champion Ryan Clark, one of my favorite players, one of my favorite Tigers, and then he played for one of my my favorite NFL teams, Washington. Was fantastic, Super Bowl champion with the Steelers. You've had him on the show frequently, and it's always a joy to listen to you two. And you can tell you have a great friendship. How did you guys first meet?
Yeah, so Ryan and I remember watching him at LSU. And then I didn't really ever watch any of his pro career because he played the bulk of it in Pittsburgh. And I just never watched the Steelers. I mean, like if the Steelers were playing a national TV game, like if they were playing a primetime game, I mean, I'd watch. I know he was the LSU guy, right? But I met Ryan in 2014. He trained in the off season at Traction, and Ryan Terrio, who's obviously a good friend, and Mac Chiwilli co-owned Traction, and Mac trained Ryan Terrio and Ryan Clark and a lot of guys, Garrett Temple. I mean, there's a long list of athletes to come out of LSU and Baton Rouge trained at Traction with Mac Chiwilli. And so I started working out at Traction in 2014, and RC was there in the off season, and that's kind of how we got to know each other. He went back and played one more season in 2015 with Washington, and then retired. And I think he was just kind of. I mean, he obviously RC blew up big on ESPN. He's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal talent. But I think he missed the opportunity to talk college football because I mean his role with ESPN is NFL. He's an NFL analyst. Absolutely. So what we've done on air is kind of carve out this role for him, this opportunity for him to talk college football. And of course, he loves LSU and he's super passionate about it and knows a lot of the players and trains and works with a lot of the players. Yeah. So and he and I we have a great friendship. I mean, there's a personal respect and love, and and to be able to kind of extend that on air and have people see it as well, like and understand that dynamics there is really cool. But he's a super talent, man. There's a story how he kind of came to be at ESPN where there was like sort of a boot camp for interested broadcasters, and they were, if I remember correctly, kind of working them in with Skip and Stephen A on first take. And RC went, notes, studied everything. And when they finished, Skip Bayless told him, he said, that's the most prepared anyone has ever been coming on this show. And it was really kind of a launching point for Ryan. So dude, don't get me wrong. Like, I ain't stupid. I get it. Like, I'm as much success as my show's had, and we've been blessed to have a little, it's still just a little old show in Louisiana. Ryan Clark's on, he's on NFL Live, and he's all over SportsCenter. I mean, he's a massive, massive personality. So, I mean, I get it. For him to give every week, to give some time to me and to our audience, is pretty awesome.
It's fantastic to listen to. I mean, but you can tell that you two just, it's genuine. It's not something you can fake. It's something that's genuine, and it's really cool that you have a nice variety of guests like that. But Ryan Clark's, just like you said, his perspective of knowing these players, knowing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that fans have no clue what's going on. And it's just funny to hear some of what Ryan said, especially in 2020, a lot of that type of stuff. It's really great to get his perspective on things. But in all your time on air, this is something I've always wondered with you. What was your toughest, wildest interview?
Okay, toughest, wildest.
Like,
I've gotten the best interview and the worst interview question plenty.
okay.
Toughest or wildest? Man, it's so hard line. And honestly, like I need to think about this and like write these down so I have it in my like memory bank just to call to whenever I get asked this question, because like the way I explain it sometimes to people, because you know what happens a lot? People say, "Oh man, I was listening when you said," or "Man, I love that segment of the interview when you did dot dot dot," and I won't remember it.
Yeah.
And when I say it this way, this will make sense, but hopefully it will. But so I've done AFR since February of 2010. So we're coming up on 13 years. Okay, so 13 years, approximately. I'm really bad at math, so you may need to help me. 13 years, approximately 250 shows a year, and 3 hours per show. So 750 hours per year times 13 years. What does that come out to? Like almost 10,000, right? Like 10,000 hours of radio. Like, it's absurd how much I've talked on the air. There is no shot that I can remember everything we've ever, like. I'll give you an example. So Gregory Clayton, who we saw return punts this week for LSU against Southern. I knew we had Greg on the show after he committed, and I totally forgot he actually came in studio. Paul, my video producer, had to remind me, no, like that wasn't a phoner. He was in studio. Like the man sat in my studio 3 feet from me, and I couldn't remember that. That was in June. It's September. Well, you know what I mean? Like it's so a long way of answering your question. I'm not answering your question. The hardest interviews to do, honestly, are sometimes with young athletes that aren't comfortable and give you 10-second answers or less.
Absolutely.
And the key is, and this is hard to do sometimes because maybe you have it in your head like you want to get 10 minutes out of this interview or whatever it is. You got to realize, man, I'm not doing the show for me. I'm doing the show for my audience. And if someone's sitting in their car or sitting at their house or watching on you, whatever, like, and I'm just pulling teeth after 2.5, 3 minutes, hit the eject button. Like, get out. It's just not worth continuing to do. Maybe the worst one, and I'll say this, but I got to add the caveat to the end. The worst one maybe was Anthony Hickey, if you remember the basketball player at LSU. He came on the show when he was a freshman, and it was awful. But to his credit, and of course he left LSU. I think he finished at Oklahoma State. By the time he left, he had gotten way more comfortable and was much better. But the first time, like right when he showed up on campus, it was the fish out of water analogy. I mean, he was just so out of his skin to do something like that it was just uncomfortable and bad. But he got good. He got much better at it.
Matt, I mean, 9,750 hours. That's what it came down to. 9,750 hours.
And imagine one interview per hour, roughly. So it's almost 10,000 interviews. And that doesn't even count podcasts and TV and all the other stuff we've done. So, like, it's hard to remember all this, dude. Like, it is very hard.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm like at 2% of what you've done, and just about 1,500 articles written so far, and it's just even at this point, I get exactly what you're saying. But Matt, I would be remiss if I didn't get your views on LSU season, because you're one of the best voices in LSU media, in my opinion, because I just think there's a lot of nuance to what you say and how you analyze things. And I think we're about to embark on a really wild year. And I think this might be a really crazy season with a lot of last-second wins, just like we saw, or last-second losses, just like we saw at Florida State. Yeah. Over the last 9 months and now 2 games into the Kelly era, what has really stood out to you about his debut season?
What stood out the most is the level of structure. It is so different than everything that I've covered at LSU. So, like, first season that I covered was 07. So I had Les from 07 till when he was fired in 16. Ed is the interim in 16 and then through 21. And now Brian Kelly. Les was very aloof. And so people laugh at Les, and some of it is obvious why. But Les was also very good at certain things. Like, you don't win 80% of your games in the SEC over a decade by happenstance. No. Les was an exceptional recruiter. If you like, this isn't my opinion. I'm talked to enough former players, parents of players who said when that dude got on the couch in your living room, it was dynamic. Like, he was good. Les was a great recruiter. Les was he could build a staff. I mean, remember, Les hired Steve Ensminger. Yes. Les hired Dave Aranda. Les hired Ed Ogeron. Les hired Corey Raymond. Les was a fantastic eye of coaching talent, and he was humble enough to hire a guy that could be his replacement.
Yeah.
Les's problem is he could not get his hands out of the offense. If he could have just left the offense alone, he'd still be here, and he'd probably have won a couple more titles. But with Les was so like there were times, man. You know, this whole thing with like Brian Kelly being late to the press conference, all that stuff. Yeah. On Monday press conferences, there were times Les would show up 30, 40 minutes late just because. I mean, after games, the media meets the coach in what they call the ready room. Yeah. Which if you go in the tunnel, like for fans, you see where the players go in the tunnel. Essentially, when you walk in, immediately to your left, there's a room, low ceiling little room where there's a podium set up. The coach does his post game press conference, and behind the podium is a door that goes into the coach's locker room. But there'd be times post game we're sitting there 20, 30 minutes waiting for he's just chilling in the coach's locker room. What? There was one time where they played in Gainesville. I can't remember what year it was, where he just was in the cop car that was the escort, and he just wanted to go tour around campus. So they put the lights on. Let's just driving around. It's just so. No, but I tell you that to say you had that, and then Ed Ogeron was so out of his league. And listen, Lon, I know, man. If people who are watching this right now, they know my take on Ed and everything. Like Ed, I have no problem with Ed Ogeron, the person. I've never had a problem with that. I think if you go back and listen to my show the day Ed was hired, he was hired on a Saturday, so the Monday. One of my big takeaways was, man, when he started tearing up talking about his dad and how proud he'd be, and a Louisiana guy, like, you can't help if you're human, but to feel good for a human achieving a lifelong goal. It's incredible. But on the coaching side, he was completely in over his head, and it showed. He didn't know how to hire. He didn't know how to assemble a staff. He didn't know how to organize and structure a program. He just didn't know how to build an organization. I mean, he hired the morning show host from our radio station to be his right hand, who was actually looking at tape and vetting coaching candidates. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, anyway.
It seemed
but No. But I only give you that context to say when you look at Brian Kelly now, because there's a very long way to answer your question, but the structure is such that there is no wasted time. Even when we got to go out to practice, there is purpose with everything they do from the moment they're on the field to the moment they leave. When you look at interviews like press conferences, Brian Kelly is on time. It was started early 2 weeks ago. Like, he is so regimented. Post game, it's like 90 minutes and everyone is out of the stadium. Players, you better be shower dressed and gone. Not like on a clock. I mean, he is so structured. It's so foreign to what was here. That's why I understand why, like, when he got hired and he said, Kayshon Boutte maybe had some trouble adjusting. You'd expect that. Like, you went from complete virtual chaos to order. And I can understand why some guys had trouble with that. So you asked me my early impression of the Brian Kelly era. That's it. It's It's the structure and the organization. Now, will his hires work out? Can he recruit a great roster? Can he win in the SEC? All that remains to be seen, but he's on for a good start, regardless of what happened against Florida State. Like, this season, if you were being honest with yourself, was always going to be an up and down roller coaster that wasn't going to be great. But it's not about this year. It's about, what does year 2, 3, 4, 5 look like? And I think the foundation he's putting in place is potentially a championship foundation.
I can only agree with you. And I saw only a few weeks of it being there, and it was very impressive. And I just, everyone from Jacques Doucet, Mike Scarborough, Brody Miller, they were all right there saying, like, we haven't seen this before. We haven't done this before. Like, everything was, wow, this is happening for the first time. This is the first time we've seen a coach do this. And just hearing them say it, like, right in front of me, it was very interesting. And now hearing you echo that, yes.
Hey, Lon, maybe he was letting us watch practice because he knew his team wasn't going to be great. He was like, hey, look, man, I'm trying to tell y'all they're going to be great.
Exactly. He's like, I told you they were going to be shit.
I think they got some good pieces on this team, though. You know what? It reminds me a lot of Will Wade's first team when he inherited a team from Johnny Jones that won 2 conference games. And, I mean, that first year I thought would be a total wash. But he came, if you remember, Will went and got, like, Randy Onwuser and I'm trying to remember some of these names, but he went and just got a whole bunch of grad transfers, JUCOs, like anybody could get that were pieces that would fit what he wanted to do. And they made the NIT, and remember they beat ULL in the NIT game. It was like, it was never going to be a great year, but he wasn't just going to punt a season. He was going to try to win as much as he could on his way toward building, which he ultimately did.
Will Wade, I think he gets a bad rap, and I think that's a great analogy because, 2022, I picked LSU to have a little bit better season than a lot of other people, and it's only because I feel that the SEC is a lot weaker than we feel. And I think we kind of saw some of that this week, but I always knew this was going to be a transition year, maybe not a complete rebuild. Maybe the complete rebuild happened during the offseason with all the transfers and that. But, that said, I just feel like, where would LSU be right now without Jaden Daniels, Matt?
It's a great question. It is bizarre to me how after 2 games, when you've watched Jaden Daniels and he is against Florida State for 3 quarters, he was your only offense. He was under complete duress, and his ability to make plays with his feet, that was your whole offense for 3 quarters. Then he catches fire in the 4th quarter with the receivers, went some tempo. We all know what happened. He's led 8 straight scoring drives. He was 10 of 11 against Southern. He's leading the SEC in quarterback efficiency and is top 5 in the country. And then you saw Garrett Nussmeier come in, who, by the way, I think is going to be a good player. But Garrett's MO is he's careless with the football, and we saw him throw 2 interceptions, including a horrendous pick 6, and probably should have thrown 4 interceptions in that game. Like, how is this even a question anymore? For anyone who has any lingering doubt about why they went and got Jaden Daniels. I mean, without Jaden Daniels, they get blown out by Florida State.
Yeah.
I'm sure they still beat Southern because there's just a completely different talent gap. But without Jaden Daniels, I mean, the whole perception of the season, in my opinion, would have to be recalibrated. Like, I still think this team can win 7 games. Yeah. Without Jaden Daniels, I mean, you'll win your 3 non-conference games, but where's an SEC win? I mean, chances are you catch lightning in a bottle, you play your best game on a given day when someone's sleeping on you and you win a game. But man, they would not be good without him. They'd be really not good.
It would be scary. Yeah, and I'm just seeing Jaden Daniels make some plays, Matt, where it's just like, I was someone who was really loving Garrett Nussmeier from what I saw, and I was just like, it's going to be Nuss. It's going to be between Nuss and Jaden Daniels. I really felt Brennan was never a part of it. But I was shocked with the carelessness we saw from Nussmeier. I know we saw it a few times during the fall. I know we saw it shine a few times during the spring. but it just seemed like maybe the quarterback battle that was going on, and maybe him not getting it, maybe that affected him going into the game against Southern. I'm not sure, but do you
Lon,
ever?
why were you shocked, man? I mean, that's what he is.
I just,
and I'm hopeful they can coach it out of him. Look at a great example is Jameis with the Saints,
yeah,
who felt like with Tampa he had to make plays, so he had to force footballs. And Sean Payton spent a year hammering into his brain, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away, take the sack, don't kill us with a turnover. And he's been great since. And maybe they can get there with Garrett, but that's what he is. There was a play, I don't know if you were there, but one of the open scrimmages we got to watch in fall camp, there was a low snap. Shocker. It was a low snap. Garrett picks it up. They're at the 10-yard line. So it's a goal to go situation. So low snap. Garrett picks it up. Mason Smith blows up the line. He's chasing Nussmeier. Nussmeier rolls back to the 30 toward the sideline. Just a big whoop and just heaves it into the end zone. And I think it was Jay Ward or Major Burns who had a pick. They dropped it. And they end up kicking a field goal. But it's like, that's what he is right now. Like, he's not learned, hey, bro, you don't have to play hero ball. Throw it away. Live to play another down. I mean, that's what he is right now.
I just thought we had seen that progression, Didn't you feel like he was progressing with the spring game? Or it felt like in spring going into fall, you felt like maybe he's gonna be more of a rhythm quarterback instead of the gunslinger mentality. And it's just it's quite an eye-opener. It's something that didn't completely shock me. It's something that I feel might be a product of just knowing that he's the second quarterback at LSU and that Jaden Daniels is the guy and this is his team.
There's some people who I think looked at the interceptions on Saturday and said, well, he's pressing because he feels like he has to make an impact. That's the worst thing to do because now all you did was dig yourself a further hole. The best thing Garrett Nussmeier can do is be a good teammate, continue to learn and grow and develop. I hope nothing happens to Jaden Daniels and he stays healthy all year and has a great year and goes to the pros and has a great long NFL career. And then next year's Garrett's turn. Garrett Walker Howard can compete for it. But man, that was concerning.
Yeah.
To see that against Southern where Garrett was careless with the football. I wasn't surprised at all by it because it's what he's been. And until your actions map to something different, you are what you are. So it's on him to show that growth and development. I think he will. I mean, Joe Sloan's a great quarterback coach, and Mike Denbrock is a fantastic offensive coordinator. He will maximize these players. But Garrett's just got some growing up to do.
Do you think Jaden Daniels is a Heisman candidate this season?
No, because you got to win. I mean, the Heisman is going to go to the best offensive player on the best team. Unless if you have a weird one-off year where, like, in 2011, RG3 won it because there wasn't a clear, obvious choice on the best team. Remember, Tyron was a finalist that year. But RG3 put up great numbers and had this dynamic year. I think that Baylor team went like 9-4, or maybe 9-3 and lost the bowl game, something like that. I think they played in the Alamo Bowl and lost. Unless if it's a weird one-off year like that, no. I mean, it's going to be best player, best team. I mean, it's going to be C.J. Stroud. I don't know that Bryce Young will win it again, just because I don't think voters are going to vote for a guy to win it a second time. I think you got to really consider Caleb Williams because Southern Cal, I don't know that they're going to lose this year. That could be an 11-1, 12-1 Pac-12 championship team, and he puts up stupid numbers with those receivers and wins it. I think those are the real candidates right now. But no, Jaden Daniels won't be in it.
Do you think he could possibly be one next year? Do you think next season's gonna, if he returns for another season?
I don't think he's back. I think so. Jaden, the story on Jaden was whenever he was coming out of California, and remember he was I don't have it for like the recruiting profile in front of me, but he was like a top 30 overall prospect in the country. I mean, he was a highly regarded guy when he came out of California and signed with Arizona State. But actually, I want to look it up. I'll tell you exactly what it was. But his whole thing was, in his family was pretty adamant about the whole thing that he was going to be 3 and done to the league. Well, of course, the COVID year happened, and wasn't a great year for Arizona State. He made the decision to come back to school and ultimately transfer. He was the number 35 overall prospect in the country, and the number 2 quarterback in the country when he signed with Arizona State in 2019. So you're talking about the number 35 overall prospect in the country. I mean, he was a massive prospect. But anyway, so no, his plan all along was to be 3 and done. He ain't going 5. He'll play this year at LSU, and he's going to the NFL. So next year it is Nussmeier, Walker Howard, go battle it out, see who wins it. The future starts next year.
That makes sense to me. That makes total sense to me. I after that kind of loss though against Florida State, Matt, Brian Kelly was really just roasted by a lot of people, from LSU fans to Paul Feinbaum to SEC shorts, even Leah Van with the if you win comment. Many are saying, this is the SEC. This is the tone of how losing is dealt with. Do you feel there will be any issues in how Brian Kelly responds to that pressure?
So it's interesting because all throughout fall camp, and really as long as we've seen Brian Kelly, right? And I'm still getting to know him like we all are.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew who Brian Kelly was, right, for a long time, but I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And still now, it's only very limited, personal interaction, really just press conference and stuff. So we're just getting sort of that those relationships grow over time. But one of the things I said a lot throughout the summer and through fall camp was, man, he's been phenomenal. For my impression of him, it was this like cold, rigid Northeastern guy, right? Angry, yelling on the sideline all the time. That was my impression of Brian Kelly. He has been the complete opposite of that. He has been warm and engaging and light and funny. And he's got a great sense of humor. Now, his jokes are not good, but he has a great sense of humor. Like, he wants to laugh and all that stuff. You mentioned the Leah Van thing. That was horribly blown out of proportion.
Yes.
Like, they were both joking. I said this on AFR. You notice that nobody that was in that room, and I was in the room, nobody in that room wrote about it, put it on the news, because it wasn't a thing. It was a 10-second clip that a podcaster took, spun, and it went viral because people took this and were like, "Oh, I can make this run." Yeah. And that's, I mean, this is tangential, but that's one thing that I loathe about media today. But I won't go down that path.
I agree.
But one of the things I said about Kelly during the summer was okay. Now it's great right now. Let's see what happens when he loses the game. Yes. Well, they lose to Florida State in horrific fashion. I mean, you were embarrassing for 3 quarters. You rally, and then you have a PAT block. Like, it was awful. And I don't think he's changed his tone or how he deals with us or how he's approaching his team. Or I think that's a man who's been a head coach for 32 years and has probably seen just about everything. So, all of the criticism from, hey, buddy, he wants to sit in my lap.
What's up, Drew?
Okay. Well, now you got his name is Lon. Can you say hi, Lon?
What's up, Drew?
Okay. Do you want to go walk?
Buddy?
You want to go watch your iPad? Okay, go watch your iPad. Okay. Go watch your iPad. Thank you. Okay. Yep. See you later. Sorry.
Go, Drew. It's okay.
Bro,
He's
that's
the best.
That's real life. Okay.
He's the best, man.
Thank you. We were talking about Brian Kelly, but I think he's just an experienced coach who's seen just about everything over 32 years. I don't think he's going to be moved by the Florida State loss. I mean, Lon, in 2016, he went 4-8 at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
You go look at some of those losses, and they were just crushing, where they had leads in the fourth quarter and couldn't hold them. And he followed that up with back-to-back double-digit win seasons and 2 playoff appearances. Like, he's going to be fine. Like, I don't worry about the Florida State loss, how it looked, any of that stuff. Like, Brian Kelly's going to be fine. He's going to win a lot at LSU. My only real question is, will he win a national championship? And a lot of things have to fall your way to have that happen. But we've seen enough of them here in Baton Rouge to be spoiled to think that it's just going to happen because the last 3 coaches have won them. And I believe Brian Kelly will. I think it's going to take time, but I think he will get there.
As for his staff, which assistant coach has really caught your eye and impressed you, Matt, these first 2 weeks and this offseason as well?
I hear so many good things about Jamar Cain, who's the defensive line coach. And man, it's such a bummer about Mason Smith. I mean, I'm stating the obvious here, Lon. I mean, I know that, but that's a dude that, oh God, like has no doubt first round potential for next year's draft. And it works so hard, but the players have a great affinity for Jamar Cain. And I think one of the reasons you saw some of the earliest commitments for this coming class on the defensive line was because prospects Jamar Cain had a great relationship already, because Oklahoma and LSU are recruiting a lot of the same prospects. I mean, you're recruiting a lot of national prospects. So Jamar Cain went to a lot of these guys that, hey, I was recruiting you at Oklahoma. I'm the same guy. Like, we compete for championships at LSU. You want to play in the SEC? And so a lot of guys followed. I think he is a really key piece to what Brian Kelly's building. And then probably the most obvious one is Frank Wilson, just because to win at LSU, like the inherent advantage you have is the dirt, is Louisiana. It's the prospects that this state produces. And I've said it this way before, Lon. I mean, if you think about it, at Notre Dame last year, Brian Kelly, with his 25-man signing class, it represented 18 different states.
Yeah.
If he wanted to see a prospect, he had to get on a plane. Right now, he wants to see his quarterback commit, drive 15 minutes to Woodlawn. You want to see your 5-star wide receiver commit, drive 5 minutes to Catholic High. You want to see your 4-star running back commit, drive 10 minutes to Liberty Magnet. You want to see your 4-star safety commit, drive 15 minutes north to Zachary. You know what I mean? Like, it's different here. And you've got to have the staff members that understand that recruiting culture here, that can fill in the blanks that he doesn't have filled right now. That's why it was so important to get Frank Wilson and Cortez Hankton and Brad Davis and Joe Sloan, who coached at Tech, but his recruiting territory was Baton Rouge, New Orleans. So very self-aware by Brian Kelly, I think, to hire Louisiana coaches, and namely among them was Frank Wilson. Look, they had to open the checkbook. I mean, to take a guy away from being a head coach to come be an assistant again, they had to pay him nearly $1 million. But Frank's got a chance to win another championship here and be a huge part of what they're building, man. He's valued. He was as critical a hire as Brian Kelly made.
Man, amen. There's a lot of people who are worried at first. Oh man, he's bringing all of his Notre Dame loyalist coaches with him. This is going to become the Notre Dame of the South. And then he really shut that up with Frank Wilson's hire. I mean, just immediately just mic drop. And then what followed was so big. So many of these, support staffers, Sherman Wilson being a huge, huge piece of right there on the staff for recruiting. And then Cortez Hankton bringing him back in the state, like you said. But Frank Wilson, man, I met him for the first time back in spring. The dude was basically recruiting me. I would vote him for president tomorrow, Matt. I literally yelled, "Uncle Frank, glad you're back." And then he just kind of waved, and I thought, well, that's the end of that. I'm walking into LSU football ops. He pulls up in his SUV, and he's like, "Hey, what's up? You've come a long way." I talked to him. He finds out where I'm from. He said, "Man, you've come a long way. Let's take a photo." And I was just like, I mean, you can see it in the photo with me. I'm basically just like I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening? Like Frank Wilson, it's just very good to have him back. Like you said, he belongs at LSU. And I feel like you said, there's a lot of just freshman and sophomore Louisiana homegrown talent on this team right now already. But then you add what's coming in behind in the next few years. It's very, very exciting. And some of these freshmen and sophomore Tigers, Louisiana homegrown guys, which ones do you believe could actually help LSU contend in the near future for a championship or even contribute right now?
Man, the most obvious, you're talking about on the team right now, some of the freshmen that are there now. I mean, the most obvious are on the offensive line. I mean, Will Campbell and Emory Jones are just built different. You don't often see freshmen on the line of scrimmage that are ready to make an impact in the SEC. So you'll see skill guys because they can translate, but the physicality at the line of scrimmage in the SEC is just different. But those dudes don't look lost. They're going to be a huge part of rebuilding a dominant front on both sides of the ball. Then you can obviously look at Mason Smith, who's we talked about the unfortunate injury. But you look ahead as well, and you see a lot of the Louisiana guys like Lance Hurd, who they just got committed as well. And you could see where the focus is. It's you got to build at the line of scrimmage, and Brian Kelly recognizes that. It's the thing that he did exceptionally well at Notre Dame was build the offensive line. But there's a lot of programs that build great. Wisconsin has produced maybe as many offensive linemen as any program, but Wisconsin's not competing for championships because while you can be maybe really dominant in one position group, building a roster 1 to 85 that looks like Bama and Clemson and Georgia and LSU in 2019, that's the challenge that you can't do at Notre Dame that he will be able to do at LSU and with a lot of Louisiana kids. So I'd start on the line of scrimmage, but man, you're never short of skill guys. And, everyone's talked a lot about Shelton Sampson since he was a freshman in high school at Catholic, and he ran 4.3 or whatever it was, 40. But he's special, and he's a guy that you look next year and you realize Kayshawn's going to be in the league, Jure's going to be in the league. You're probably going to have some attrition at that position just because there's so many talented guys. In the same way that Coy Moore and Trey Palmer left this year, looking for an opportunity to get on the field. You'll probably have some guys leave after this season, which is going to open the door for a guy like Shelton Sampson to walk in as a freshman and be a big-time contributor, which I suspect he will.
That would be sick. I mean, and it's coming from your alma mater, your high school alma mater. I mean,
I didn't even mention it, man. I didn't even mention with Emory either. But I'll tell you this, dude.
You got to.
I love my alma mater. People know that. I shout out Calici all the time. But whether you listen, if you're an LSU fan, whether you love Calici or you hate Calici, I don't care. You had better hope that the LSU staff builds a direct pipeline from Hearthstone Drive to Dalrymple, because you can look at guys like Geis and Clyde, and now we're looking at Emory, who's on campus, and they got Shelton Sampson committed. Lon, I'm gonna tell you, man, the talent don't stop there. It is a long list of talented players in all classifications at that school right now, and you had better hope they all end up in the purple and gold. I mean, because they have something special going on there. In the same way that in the last decade, U-High had built this great pipeline. You got a lot of kids from U-High, but you missed on a lot of kids from U-High too.
Yes.
You gotta build that Catholic high relationship. They're doing a good job so far.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting you say that, because day one for Brian Kelly recruiting, where does he go? Catholic High, the first high school he goes to as head coach at LSU. He understood it. He knew it. Matt, I've taken so much of your time. Just a few more questions, but I mean, you just mentioned offensive line. There's been a lot of whispers. I don't know if these are from educated people or who, but even in the media, I've heard this. Whispers in the shade against Brad Davis's O-line coaching abilities. Do you feel there's the criticism towards Brad Davis is valid as a coach, or do you think they're kind of saying he's more of a recruiter than a coach? Do you think that's valid?
I haven't heard those whispers, so I don't know if you're comfortable saying, but where you're hearing that kind of stuff. because I haven't heard that.
You just hear this from the fan base that we're going to have to question.
Okay.
We're going to have to question
No.
Brad Davis's offensive line coaching ability after this season if they don't get up to snuff. Do you think that's more just the hand he's dealt?
Okay, so if you ask people within the coaching profession, it's hard to find anybody who will say a negative thing about Brad Davis's technical coaching ability. When LSU was looking to replace James Craig, they really looked at two guys. One is Brad Davis, the other is Alex Atkins, who you just saw as the Florida State offensive coordinator. Two brilliant technical offensive line coaches. That's one where if it's a fan saying it, I kind of just want to open hand slap him in the face. Here's what I'll say about Brad Davis a year ago. They fired James Craig in the summer. So Brad Davis showed up a month before camp.
Yeah.
Thereabouts. I remember the timeline.
It was like a month and a half. Yeah.
So
I think it was in June.
So all these guys who had been coached different technique, different voice, different coaching style for their time in Baton Rouge immediately right before this last season. Remember, you got 4 returning starters as well. All of that changed. And I thought Brad Davis did a very self-aware thing, is to try to not make everyone change to him, but he tried to adapt to them. So there was a feeling out process, and they got better as the season went along. I mean, it was very bad early, as we saw. Then, I mean, once they started to hit their stride a little bit, you saw, I mean, obviously the record-breaking day that TDP had against Florida, and he went on to have a great November, and they improved as the season went along. And then you look at this season. Obviously, Ed gets fired, and you bring in Brian Kelly. He retains Brad Davis, and you look at the line, and you lose 4 starters from that group, and you got some dudes that played, but nobody that was really established. They bring in 2 transfers, and you have a true freshman left tackle. Brad Davis spent the spring cross-training 5 players at center because Charles Turner still wasn't ready to take over the starting spot, they felt. And your other center, by the way, is a true freshman who is a high school defensive lineman who they're now converting to center. Like, the guy that started the first game against Florida State had never snapped a football in his life, and he's doing it in the Superdome on national TV against Florida State in that defensive front. You got a true freshman at left tackle, a left guard that was a tackle at a G5 school, and a right guard that had played right tackle a year before, and a right tackle that was a turnstile at left tackle. If you honestly are looking at that and blaming the offensive line coach, you're high. You're high. Like, Brad Davis will maximize this group. And I'll tell you, as you and I sit here and have this conversation on September the 13th, watch the progression Will Campbell makes throughout the season.
Yes.
Watch how much more involved Emory Jones is throughout the season. It's 2 true freshmen, by the way, who will win their battles and will lose some as well. Watch how much better Anthony Bradford gets as a guard throughout the course of this season. Like, that's coaching, that's continuity, that's familiarity with your position and the guy playing next to you. Look, man, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like a glory day story, but I played on the line obviously just at the high school level, not at a high level. But the thing that's undeniable at any level is it's 5 playing as 1. And when you have 5 that have never played together, and 4 of the 5 had never even played the position they were playing, that's hard. So, if you're a fan chirping about Brad Davis right now, first, don't be stupid. Second, recognize the talent they have there and give them time. Like, you're talking about a tight end room that has a true freshman who's probably never thrown a block in his life because he's the biggest athletic freak on every team he's been on, right? Mason Taylor. You've got Cole Taylor, who's most known for having his shoe thrown. You've got Jack Mashburn, who was a high school quarterback, walked on, bulked up to become a tight end, And then Nick Storrs, who's a baseball player, had a medical retirement, came out of his medical retirement now to play football. It's like, think about what, like, the hardest thing for me to reconcile here, Lon, is the people who didn't, as much as people like me or you or whoever maybe tried to say this for 6 months before the season, people hear and believe what they want.
Yeah.
And these are all things that we talked about for 6 months, but people don't want to hear it. Now you see it manifest. They want to crap on coaches or say, is this really the right? No. Like, this is what they inherited, and they're trying to make the most out of this situation, and they're going to continue building the roster back to a championship level. But you have to give them time to do it. And they're showing you with their recruiting chops already that they are doing it, and they're well on their way to doing it. But you got to be patient with them, and they're going to get there.
You know what, Matt? I thought, oh God, I just asked Matt the dumbest question in the world, but you just turned the dumbest question in the world into like a really good thing for, I think, the fans to hear. I really think the fans need to hear just a really good kick in the ass of reality from you right there, especially when it comes to Brad Davis. Because
he's a really good coach, man. He's a really, really good technical offensive line coach. They've got a great one. He's going to be a head coach in college football at some point in his career. Like, just give him time. Look at what he's dealing with. Give him time.
Exactly. That's my argument as well. It's absolutely ridiculous, but I'm glad to get you on the record to basically just say, hey, let's kind of wake up here. I got to get the last two questions here for you, Matt. But after what we witnessed this week with Alabama, Florida, A&M all being completely exposed, even though Alabama escaped per usual, do you think the higher-ranked SEC teams are weaker than the preseason polls were indicating?
I think Georgia's better than we thought, me included. I mean, I thought, how do you lose 15 draft picks and your defensive coordinator and not miss a beat? Well, they haven't missed a beat. Bama, I think Saturday was a one-off. Bama's awesome, and they're going to be there at the end. I mean, remind you that as great as Bama was last year, we would all agree. I mean, Bryce Young won the Heisman, and that was a pretty fantastic football team. Yeah. LSU held them to 8 yards rushing. Is that right?
Six.
Yep. Thank you. So a 500 football team held them to 6 yard rushing in their stadium. And Auburn, if Tank Bigsby just stays in bounds, Auburn beats them. Okay. And that was a great Alabama team.
Yeah.
Every team in the history of every sport ever through the course of a season will play its best game and its worst game. Georgia might have played its best game against Oregon. Maybe they have more. Like, I watched LSU in 2020 give up 600 passing yards to KJ Costello. And then went on the road and beat Florida as a 23-point underdog, whatever it was.
With a true freshman starting on the road in his debut.
Everybody's going to have their best day. Everybody's going to have their worst day. Bama committed 15 penalties. Receivers dropped balls. It was just not great. But I've got a large enough sample size on Bama and Nick Saban and Bryce Young to know they're going to be okay. I'm skeptical on A&M obviously is. I didn't understand A&M in the top 10, and that's not revisionist history. I said it when the preseason top 10. That's one of the reasons I hate preseason polls. A&M was 8-4. They were 8-4 a year ago. In what reality did we believe that was warranted of a top 10 ranking? And they're going to take their lumps this year for sure. Arkansas and Kentucky, I think, are the most interesting ones because I don't know if those two are ready to take the next step. We saw Arkansas last year, if you remember. They beat Texas. They beat A&M. They got up to number 8 in the country, and they went to Athens and got absolutely smoked by Georgia. So I think Arkansas is a good team. I don't know how good. Like, I don't know if they're top 10 good. But with that schedule, we'll find out soon enough, and I'd say the same for Kentucky.
That's the thing, man, is Arkansas are very – I feel like their schedule is really going to be a disservice to them. I think they're flying here. They're flying to Utah for a game. And then I think a very quick travel back to facing some other SEC opponent. That's just a ridiculous schedule to have mid-season, to be traveling clear to Utah in the season. I mean, what is going on?
Somebody asked Sam Pittman. I think it was Chris Marler. He's on Twitter at Vern Funquist. If you don't know Chris,
I know him. Yes,
yeah.
I know him.
So Chris was at SEC Media Days, and he asked Sam Pittman. He said, "Why?" He said, This was like on the mic in the main room, so like it was televised live on SEC Network and everything. He goes, "So you're the nicest guy ever. Why do they hate you? Like, why are they doing this to you with the scheduling?" It's like it's a really good point, man. Every year Arkansas has the toughest schedule, but Pittman's response was a good one. He said, "You don't play every game in the same week, so you take them one at a time." Like Cincinnati was a tough game. Well, they won it.
Yeah.
Home game against South Carolina could have been tricky. They won it. Now they get Missouri State. How about Bobby Petrino going back to Fayetteville? That's going to be interesting.
It's going to be
wild. And then they got to go to Texas A&M. That doesn't seem as daunting anymore. They got to come home against Bama. They go to Mississippi State. You mentioned at BYU, which in middle of October you go to Provo. It's so weird. And so back to back. So they're 4 consecutive weeks. They go at A&M, Bama, at Mississippi State, at BYU. And then they get a bye. Then they go at Auburn. And then they get to play Liberty and Hugh Freeze. I mean, it's just a brutal schedule. They finished with LSU, Ole Miss, and then at Missouri. So, yeah. I mean, even there, dude, even the non-conference, you're talking about ranked Cincinnati, at ranked Utah, Missouri State with Bobby Petrino, Liberty with Hugh Freeze. Like, there's no layups. Why would they do that?
I mean, they probably thought the gimme game would be Liberty, but I mean, just they're killing Pittman. It's madness what he faces every year. But Matt, last question, my man. I just got to ask you this game coming up this weekend. What do you expect from LSU in this SEC opener versus Mississippi State?
I think what we're going to see from LSU is continued progression every week, like where you continue to see them get better. Brian Kelly, when he talked about moving Greg Brooks to safety and Jay Ward to nickel, when he talked about maybe still shuffling the offensive line a little bit, those are usually things you do in the spring. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Maybe some things linger into fall camp. Not when you start conference play. But it's an illustration of a coach who's still getting to know his team because it is so new. Yeah. Like he's trying to learn what all of these guys can do, where they best. He didn't have Greg Brooks for 4 years.
Nope.
He hadn't had Greg Brooks for 4 months. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you're going to see a progression throughout the year of them continuing to improve week to week to week, to where you're going to look in November and go, man, this isn't the same team. Like, I'd like to see this team in November play Florida State, see how that goes. Like, I think that's going to be our general sentiment. So I think this is another week where they improve. I love Ward at the nickel. I love Brooks at the safety. They got to have Micah Baskerville on the field because you've got to have athletic people that can run, cover, and tackle. If they do that, they can win this game. I think it is going to be exceptionally hard to run the football against Mississippi State. They have a very talented defensive line, and we saw Florida State's very talented defensive line maul LSU.
Yes.
I think this offensive line today is better than they were against Florida State. I'm not saying they're good. They're better than they were against Florida State. And I think Mike Denbrock has learned more about his players and what they can do. So I think it's a game where LSU's got to take advantage of its athletes on the perimeter. That's where LSU's going to have the advantage in most games with Kayshawn and Jeray Jenkins and Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, Jack Besh. I mean, that's where LSU's advantage is. So it might be a really frustrating offensive day, but eventually LSU's going to pop the big play because they got too many athletes that are too good. The real question, and I don't think LSU is going to be able to run the ball. The real question is going to be, can LSU get off the field on third down and tackle? If they can get off the field on third down and prevent a 3-yard hitch from becoming a 30-yard, route.
Wednesday.
Hey, baby.
Wednesday.
Tomorrow is Wednesday. Very good. I think they'll have a great chance to win the game. But if they don't tackle well,
On Monday.
they're going to get embarrassed. On Monday, we'll go to New St. Lillian. But the one thing to keep in mind too is, remember last year Mississippi State when Mike Leach made that comment? I think they lost to Arkansas, and they missed a bunch of kicks. And he said, "We're holding open tryouts on campus for kicker." And a lot of people roasted him for it because he hung his kickers out to dry. Well, they had a kid miss 2 PATs last week. And
wow.
They switched kickers, and both are transfers, by the way. One kid's from Coastal Carolina, I think one's from like Northern Illinois. They're directional schools that don't play a good level of football. But the kicking game, I think, is going to be really – I think it's going to be a close game, and the kicking game is going to be a big part of it. You know his name. What's his name?
Drew.
What's his name? We already talked about it. What's his name?
What up, Drew?
What's his name? You already said it.
Drew.
What's
up, man?
Lon. Say hi, Lon.
It's Lon. What's up, Drew?
Say hi, Lon.
I know.
Okay.
Drew,
I was going to take you back in a minute. All right. So we got 3 interruptions. I told you it was going to happen.
It's okay.
It happened 3 times.
It's okay. I'm glad he made a cameo.
Yeah, man. People are so nice, man. They're he's obviously got his little challenges, but most people are just so nice. Drew walks into places and it's like, I don't know if you'll get this reference. I don't know how old you are, but he's like Norm in Cheers. He just walks in a bar and it's like, Norm. That's like Drew. Like, he'll go to places, we always have these little outings and he walks in and everyone's like, Drew. It's just,
I love
Drew has a way of impacting people, man. He's a special kid.
He's a fantastic. I mean, I'm just glad he's blessed us with his presence on here tonight. I mean, this has been fantastic, Matt. I really would love to have you on again. Fantastic talking with you. Please have a fantastic season on AFR. We're going to be watching every step of the way, you on AFR and on Whiskey and Wine, you and T-Bob's craziness with the cigars and the crazy whiskey, and T-Bob's going to be pissed off about the O-line all season long, and I cannot wait to hear it, man. You guys, thank you so much for providing what LSU fans, what you guys do for us. Matt, seriously, the way you challenge LSU fans, the way you challenge LSU Tiger fans to think outside the box and from different perspectives, the guests you guys bring on, you really do give us a great show every day, Matt. And I thank you so much for what you've been doing for a long time.
It's my pleasure, Lon. Thanks for the invite, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you so much.
Good.